Welcome to Leader, a program dedicated to building leadership capacity. Today's topic, strategy and systems. Hey, welcome to Leader. This session's on systems and strategy, and as senior leaders in organizations, we come to realize that the type of problems that we're called upon to address get more and more complex. And in school, we're taught simply to reduce the problem to its discrete components, find the components, fix that, and put it all back together and let's run along. With these more complex issues, it becomes increasingly difficult to reduce this to its smallest. There's some other invisible forces at play. And we learn as senior leaders, we need some more tools to help us deal with these more complex issues. That's where the concepts of systems and systems thinking come in. They provide the tools for us to see organizations as patterns of relationships that are dynamic, not static. So a system is an entity that functions as a whole with the relations of its parts. This idea of wholeness and seeing the whole picture is the true essence of systems. In fact, it's the opposite of what we learned in school about reducing a problem to its smallest components. If you cut a car in half, you don't have two cars. You actually have a heap. It turns out that a car and all the parts work in relationship to deliver an emergent property, transportation. I learned about this the hard way. As a young guy, I decided I wanted to do my own tune-up, and I changed my spark plugs. When I started the car after I reassembled it, it sounded like something out of a cartoon, backfiring and so on. And I realized that there's a particular relationship, the firing order to the spark plugs to the distributor. There are two determinants of complexity. There is detail complexity and dynamic complexity. Detail complexity is the number of parts. So for example, a 1,000-piece puzzle is more complex to put together than a 100-piece puzzle. Strategic planning deals very effectively with detail complexity. Dynamic complexity is the number of changing relationships and patterns that go on in organizations. And strategic planning doesn't deal as effectively with this dynamic complexity. That's where systems and system thinking comes into play as we look at the patterns and relationships in the organization. Now, a car is a closed system, meaning it has detail complexity, but not dynamic complexity. Organizations are open systems, and they have dynamic complexity, meaning that they're influenced by the outside world and things that go on inside the organization. Remember when we did the triangle game that I asked you to get in an equilateral triangle with two others. Immediately, the system got very messy. And this represents, I think, how organizations actually work. They're more messy than those clean organograms that we see that give the appearance that organizations can be easily changed and that there's not a lot of dynamic complexity in the organization. If somebody walked into the room and observed us in that triangle exercise, would they be able to figure the patterns that were going on, the relationships? Without some additional tools, probably not. So that's where systems and system thinking comes in. Bullman and Deal offered us some tools to help us see systems more completely. They called it reframing the organization, or viewing through organizational frames. There's the human resource frame, the structural frame, the political frame, and the symbolic frame. Here's a bit of a refresher on the four frames. As part of our work in the strategic planning session, we chose to work with IA, Workplace of Choice and Employee Engagement. Out of that emerged 6 key result areas, KRAs, and I'm going to present them next. As you look at these, does Bullman and Deal help us identify leverage points to deal with some of the dynamic nature of IA as a complex organization? Hey, thanks for watching this edition of Leader to Leader, a program sponsored by Leading Culture.